for those that do not know, what is the book that is about to come out?
It is Phandelver and Below, the Shattered Obelisk. So the adventure starts out being very recognizable. It is a remastered version of The Lost Mine of Phandelver. So folks might remember that adventure from the 2014 starter sets, and it's a very classic adventure where there are goblins causing problems with some townspeople, and there are bandits in this town of Phandalin. There's a whole plot about this lost mine that has been taken over by a villain, and the characters have to go and reclaim it for the town's benefit. And that is that adventure. That is about a third of this book. We've done a remastered version of that in which we've redeveloped some of the combats to be a little bit more streamlined. We have changed up and made more robust some of the descriptions. We've ordered a whole bunch of brand new beautiful art. And also we've dropped in plot hooks to the later plot that unfolds at the end of the original adventure. And the next 2/3 of the book is all about what happens once the characters reclaim the mine. And as a long story short, they uncover inklings of a terrible, terrible, really horrifying plot that just escalates in intensity until the very end.
What makes this sort of a quintessential D&D adventure? Because it is, again, hard to talk about any adventure book without spoiling it, but we go to a lot of places, we see a lot of things, there are a lot of monsters, and like you said, not everything is as it appears.
I mean, as an initial matter, it has dragons and dungeons. It has multiples of both.
Perfect.
And there is a lot of the feel of here's a home base that we're building as characters, and then we go out and face the danger and then come back as a place to rest. One of the things that does is it really establishes the town and the people itself is really important to the characters. So as they go out and then they come back and see things are going even more wrong than they thought, there's a real drive to sort of help fix things, to help make the home that the characters have made a safe place to live that they have experienced thus far. So it's a lot of the fun in that. As you might expect, some of the initial treks out are close to the town, and they are, the sort of things appropriate for low-level characters to handle. But as they get higher level, they're going further, in some cases, impossibly further from the town in order to try to help it out, to track down, rescue people, find information, that kind of thing.
So again, we're not spoiling the adventure.
Right.
There is something going on, though.
There is something going on, and it's been going on in the background the entire time, as the player characters will realize at some point that while they were exploring the wilderness around Phandalin and talking to the NPCs and making friends, which is a perfectly valid thing to do, there is a plot that's unfolding that might make all of those things go away. And so as characters realize who and what is precious to them, they will need to race against the clock to try to make sure that that terrible plot never comes to fruition, because, let me just, without spoilers, say, is real bad.
What is kind of the mythology of the Shattered Obelisks, or these obelisks that we've been finding in other adventures in D&D?
Yeah, so the obelisks have been these big mysteries throughout the history of D&D, particularly 5th edition D&D. And we haven't really explained too much about what they are, except that they are ancient and that they're from the Netherese Empire. And here we have a very specific obelisk that has been mentioned before, but is still in that same category. And players and DMs who read this book will find out exactly what types of power the obelisks have, but what power this specific obelisk has, and what happens when really nefarious elements decide that they're going to co-opt that power and turn it into an absolutely horrifying element that then threatens the entire town of Phandalin's existence, really the town of Phandalin's soul. It gets pretty intense.
So it's my understanding that there is also a time element, like time is of the essence in this.
Absolutely. So time is of the essence once the characters figure out really that those psionic goblins that have caused mayhem in Phandalin were after something specific. And once they realize that those specific things were pieces of the Shattered Obelisk, they figure out a way to identify where the other pieces are, that other minions of some mysterious evil group or overlord or whatever the threat is, which isn't revealed until later, when their minions are after those already, the characters have got to beat them to those pieces of the Shattered Obelisk. And it becomes a race against the clock from that moment on, as they race to get the pieces before the evil overlords can get their minions involved, but also before the evil overlords are able to continue to progress their ritual further and further and further. And then figuring out exactly how and why that is happening, and the fact that just because the characters may be successful in some or even all of their tasks doesn't mean that that is stopping.
What is some of your favorite aspects of this adventure?
I liked it more and more as we get to the weirder and weirder sections. So again, I don't want to go into a lot of the spoilers as we talked about, but as you are traveling through, vast gross voids of slime and things like that, that are the sort of places that are far, far beyond what you might expect from a simple town in trouble.
I enjoy the unexpected places, I think, that this adventure goes. The adventure does start out with that very classic high fantasy adventure in a small town and in the wilderness, foiling the plot of a villain who becomes fairly known to the characters pretty early on. And it transitions into strange happenings in Phandalin being perpetrated by completely brand new types of villains. These are Psionic Goblins. These are completely different types of goblins from the beginning, and why the goblins have ransacked the village and vandalized several very important spots in the village, and turns out stolen little pieces of a dark stone shot through with a green color. Why they've done that is then the key to figuring out what's going on with the rest of the mystery that takes the characters down below into the Underdark and far beyond.
What is it about dungeon crawls that people enjoy so much?
I think the thing about dungeon crawls that makes them great is that they are constrained, but they're constrained in a helpful way. That is to say, as players, you can go into it with the mindset of, we're going into this weird location, and we're going to explore in this weird location until we meet some sort of goal, find the thing we're looking for, rescue the person we're looking to find, something like that.
The other aspect of dungeon crawling that for me is very fun is the environmental storytelling that you can do both as a DM and as a writer. It's all well and good to just create a dungeon crawl that is a random dungeon with no discernible backstory and a bunch of monsters that don't have a reason for being there that the characters have to make their way through to get out of the dungeon, but that's not nearly as fun. It's much more fun to think about where did the dungeon come from? Who built the dungeon? What were they doing when they built the dungeon? How long was it used for that purpose? And what stories unfolded there? And what types of emotional resonance is still there? What are the big events that affected everything in the dungeon all the way back from when it was started? And the way to really accomplish that through running adventures is to put old magic items, put old treasures, put things that the characters can find that tell the story about the dwarven miners that were underground, and the things that they uncovered while they were underground. Showing sometimes old bones with a journal that describes a terrible thing that happened before the last entry just cuts off. Showing, it's D&D, so many monsters have lifespans that are centuries long. Having them speak with an old creature that has been around since the very beginning and remembers the olden days and can tell the characters what happened. Those are the really fun parts. It's just uncovering that story and how it weaves into the characters' goals.
So we have an extremely cool, I would even say metal. It's not made out of metal, but this is a cover that is going very hard.
Metaphorically, it is metal.
Yeah, can you show it off a little bit?
Absolutely, yes. So this cover is the alt cover. That is absolutely gorgeous. It's probably my favorite alt cover that we've ever done. This was concepted entirely by the artist and with a lot of encouragement by Bree Heiss, who's the art director of this just wonderfully beautiful, creepy looking book, but also myself. And we had very specific elements to include, as you will see that there are little Easter eggs of types of creatures in this book. On the back, you can see the ampersands with even more special types of creatures, and the obelisk there in the middle There are a lot of deliberate choices in this cover. This green color is a green color that is a through line throughout all of the art and the visuals in this book. It is an indicator of strange happenings. And I won't be specific about what kind of strange happenings because that's a bit of a spoiler. But we are calling it Reanimator Green. For those of you who know, you know. And it goes throughout the whole book, and it is a visual indicator that strange things are afoot when you see that in the art and in some of the illustrations. So there's that, there's the color, and then there's also just the design of the book cover here, which we pulled from a lot of classic horror novels, pulp horror posters. A number of different examples have used this sort of very line work focused, very dramatic looking mood that this is evoking. And, you know, like I said, this is probably my favorite.
I mean, and to that point, like there's a bunch of amazing art, which we can't show you because spoilers, but like the art is absolutely stunning and the interior design.
Yeah, we had DZO who did this cover, who did, like I said, just a wonderful job, just knocked it out of the park. But we also had Tristan Falcone, who was working on the interior of this book and has a very interesting way of expressing visually the plot that is progressing and that is building in intensity through the end. And so everything about the book is meant to evoke that sense of oppressive time management, the drama and the stakes that are involved, and it just continues to ratchet up until we get to the very ends.